hot to handle, too cold to hold. They called the Ghostbusters and they're in control. Had them throwing parties for a bunch of
I don't know if I told you this before, but the title of this review should be, Did Busting Make Us Feel Good?
God damn it, you stole my opening joke, you piece of shit. I'm gonna still use it and not give you credit for it. Hello, everyone, I am Zazubaar, and welcome to kind of an aspect of the road trip to GFest 3, The Search for More Swag. Joining me, as they have been for this mini-series, I have Dylan McCandless.
I've been home for a week.
Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
Hello, people of the internet.
Cal was unfortunately unable to make it, so in his place, replacing him in both heart and mind, I have I almost said Andres Perez because you guys have similar first names. I have Andrew Patagula. Oh, I'm sorry, dude, I mispronounced your name.
No, that was it.
What?
That was
Pretty
it, Battaglia.
Yeah, you said it.
It's Andrew Pataglia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Perfect.
Just call him.
AKA Blue Eye, say hi, man. Just say hi, you piece of shit. Introduce yourself.
Hello, folks. And thank God we're going through that debacle.
Oh,
and you wonder why people ask me why I changed it to Blaze on Facebook.
Oh, it makes sense. Listen, I sympathize. I mean, my last name is German and means sausage, so I mean, you know.
Agent
Phil
of sausage.
Sausage.
Agent of Sausage. Marvel's Agent of Sausage.
Right.
We should probably also mention
Featuring Ghost Skater.
William Frank. Oh, well, I was about to mention this, but go ahead, D.
We should
Frank
probably
Miller.
also mention that in addition to Jacob Baker, the Kaiju Maker, was also supposed to be here tonight, but it was very difficult to try and coordinate that many people to be in a podcast at once, and he graciously agreed to sit this one out in exchange for doing a video with him at some point in the future.
So we will have Jacob on the channel on the channel very soon. I can't talk tonight. This is a problem.
You're on the channel.
And you didn't even drink anything, Phil.
No, I'm totally sober, which makes it so much more embarrassing. Or less embarrassing, depending on your point of view. You know, and it all matters on your point of view. From your certain point of view. Anyway, so this intro has gone on long enough. So with these 4 scientists that I have with me, and it's just like the trailer for the movie we're about to review because none of you are scientists. So it's an inaccurate statement. It's an inaccurate statement, just like that trailer.
Nor am I an average fighter.
No, certainly not. You're an above average fighter, certainly, Dylan.
Oh yes,
And you
yeah.
So tonight we're going to be answering the call because we are going to be doing a review of the 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters.
I see what you did there. Answer.
So we're going to the totally uncontroversial, universally praised remake of the original Ghostbusters because it is essentially a remake.
Are we going to do that review all on our own?
We are indeed, just the 4 of us. So
We're too hot to handle, too cold to hold.
We're the Ghostbusters, and we're certainly in control of this review. So, not really. So far, things have been kind of all over the place.
Well, to make sure the dogs and cats aren't living together.
Oh, I hate that shit. I'm totally against that.
Cats. Would you expect anything more organized on this channel, Bill?
No, certainly not. And as much as I wanted Jacob and Kyle to be here, I am a bit sort of relieved that I only had to deal with 4 people being on this podcast tonight. Because it meant I had to plan less. Because when we had 6 people coming, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to really rigidly structure the topics because otherwise it's going to turn into a free-for-all. So, as much as I wanted Jacob and Kyle to be here because they were with us when we saw the movie, which is why we were going to have all six of us here. It wasn't just going to be for... because I fucking like all you people, which, not really true.
The most people we've ever taken to the movies with this, Bill.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. We'll get to that in a sec. I'm a bit happier that we just have the 4, because it'll be more of a casual discussion. So, with all that said, why don't we just get right into it? Ghostbusters 2016. So, before we jump into the review itself, since this is a aspect of the Road Trip to GFest miniseries, I kind of want to do it a little bit like we did the past 2 movie reviews we did during the past 2 years, and kind of talk about the experience of going to the movie itself before we actually discuss the movie. So, every year, on the Friday of GFest weekend, the first day, we always like to go check out a new movie in theaters, because it's the only time during the year that Dylan, Andres, and I get to go see a movie together. So this year we decided to go see Ghostbusters 2016 because it was literally the only thing that was out this weekend, which actually wasn't true. There was another movie we wanted to see, but we decided that Ghostbusters would provide for the more interesting video, so we decided to go see that. The other movie we were thinking about seeing was the Bryan Cranston movie, The Infiltrator.
Yes,
where
which looks really good. When we walked out of Ghostbusters, I was kind of pissed that we didn't go see that.
Well,
But which one do you think is going to get all the views, Dylan?
Yeah, Dylan.
It's
I
like
know, I
Ghostbusters
know.
is the hot topic right now.
Damn it,
See,
Andre,
Ghostbusters
if I cared about-
infiltrates the hearts and minds of everybody.
You'll gain more subscribers that way.
Andres, if I cared about views, I would run my YouTube channel very differently. And by differently, I mean run it at all.
Yeah, exactly. So we are in. So we chose to go see Ghostbusters because we knew that would make for the more interesting video, because we actually have like an opinion based in prior sort of experience with this, because it's a franchise that we're all familiar with, and who wants to go see an original movie in theaters anymore? Ew. Let's just go see stuff that was like a proven formula, a proven franchise, you know what I mean? Who wants to take a chance on a theatrical experience anymore?
I'm so glad that we're now contributing to the death of cinema, but please go on.
Yeah, exactly. So this year, though, instead of it just being Dylan, Andres, and I, we actually took a couple of bogeys with us, and by bogeys I mean people we know. So Kyle was with us anyway, so Kyle came, but we also brought along, having met up with them at the con, Andrew Battaglia. Excuse me, I keep forgetting that there's an IA.
Just say Andrew.
Thank you.
For the love of God, just save yourself some trouble, Phil.
But it's a full name. I have to say the full name.
It's a first and last name thing, Bill. It's not like my first name is the full name.
I just don't want you to hurt yourself, you know. It's just
I already have. It's too late. I already hurt my own feelings.
Just say Andrew.
I'm already hurt by you guys. You guys have hurt my feelings.
Anyway.
So Andrew and Jacob both decided to come along with us because they're fucking masochists and decided that they wanted to endure the pain. No, I'm being facetious. But Andrew, since this is the first time you've been on my channel outside of like a thing we actually recorded at GFest, because you were on one of those podcasts last year. Since I've got you here, you're sitting in the comfort of your own home. Well, it's not comfortable because you're on Staten Island, so you know, it's as comfortable as you can get, I guess.
Well, at least my home isn't a breeding ground for great white sharks.
I mean, it's close enough. There are probably great white sharks near you.
I don't think great white sharks have breeding grounds. I think they have breeding waters.
Well,
Long Island is one of those now. So
yeah. Well, then again, Bill. To be fair, in your case, the sharks probably wouldn't attack you because they would think you're another member of their kind, considering how fucking white you are.
That's true. All right.
Savage, sick burn.
Good for me, I guess. That's
a positive.
True.
I'm just like, thank you. That's a compliment.
It's a compliment.
Thank you for telling me why I won't get attacked by sharks.
They'd come after me because they'd see me swimming and they'd be like, "That's the juiciest manatee I've ever seen."
See, I think they look at me and they think. I think they look at me and they think beluga, you know. So I thought they're like, we're not gonna fuck with that. That's a toothed whale. Those bite back. So Andrew, what is your experience with the Ghostbusters franchise? Are you a diehard fan? Are you indifferent? What's sort of your fandom level for Ghostbusters?
Well, like most other franchises from the 80s, I was first introduced to it through my folks through TV. And I remember watching the original Ghostbusters, and of course, I remember enjoying it. And I've only seen the first Ghostbusters film up until I saw Ghostbusters 2 when I was at Chicago. After we saw the remake of Ghostbusters, immediately Ghostbusters 2 appeared on TV, and I decided to give it a watch.
Yeah, because they had that marathon that we watched the exact same night.
Yeah, the night before we saw the movie, we actually watched Ghostbusters 1 and 2 back to back like 4 times.
Yeah, was that by AMC, right?
That was AMC, yeah. The slime double feature, I think they called it. I felt pretty slimy afterwards.
Of course.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, like I'm not a big Ghostbusters fan, but I definitely enjoy the first movie, and I played the Xbox 360 video game, which I, like most others, I consider that to be the Ghostbusters 3 because it feels like that. And when I heard that they were making this movie, I just rolled my eyes and ignored it until you guys mentioned that you were going to go see it, and I said, fuck it, why not?
Right. So you decided to jump on the bandwagon, as they say.
Essentially, I said to myself I had nothing else to do in my life, so I might as well just go see this movie and put myself through pain and torture, or maybe not.
Right. See, because that's the thing. I mean, and let's open with this, I suppose. So the sort of general expectation, I think, with this movie and with watching a review of this movie is you're gonna click on it and it's gonna be a bunch of people fucking releasing their bile for it over the airwaves.
Right.
And
Because naturally, since we went to see Ghostbusters and aren't sucking its dick the entire time, clearly it's because we hate women. So we
Right,
have to spend the entirety
exactly.
of this review, discussing how much we hate women.
And how much we hate this movie because it bastardizes our childhood and our love of Ghostbusters and all that. And I asked Andrew that because Andres and Dylan, I'm pretty sure that the people watching are aware that you guys are both. Bustin makes you two feel good. I'm
Yeah.
presuming.
Yeah.
Bustin does indeed make me feel good.
I'm not a hardcore Ghostbusters fan. I mean, I have yet to have seen any of the cartoon series, the real Ghostbusters, outside of the one episode we watched together on Long Island. And I did have fond memories of Extreme Ghostbusters, but it's nothing I've pined for or wanted to get on DVD and relive my childhood over. But yeah, I am definitely like a casual Ghostbusters fan, and mostly enjoy the movies as opposed to anything else that in that expanded universe / franchise.
Right. Now, D, it sounds like you and I are the two biggest Ghostbusters fans here because I'm a pretty hardcore
Oh yeah, man.
Buster as they might say. I don't know what the Ghostbusters fans are known as. So I'm just gonna say Buster.
Stay Puft
even though
Marshmallow
that
Man.
sounds really dumb though.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is my favorite kaiju.
Absolutely. And I bet you love what they did with them in this movie, but we'll get to that.
Actually, I did. So
That's what I meant.
The
It
one
was
cameo that makes sense.
It was a play on expectations, Dylan.
now the thing,
My favorite cameo.
now the thing they used to fill his role in the movie is a different story, but
Yeah, we'll get to that. So I actually just watched a whole bunch of real and extreme Ghostbusters last night.
Oh, really?
Not in preparation for this review, but just because I was kind of hankering for more Ghostbusters. I'd rewatched both movies already, and I was still really in that mindset. So I was just kind of like, I guess I'll put those back on. And God, there's you go back and you watch any cartoon from the 80s and 90s, and you're instantly kind of like, oh, I'm gonna have to really try and put my nostalgia filter on for this because it's probably going to be horrible and not hold up well. And shockingly, those cartoons both hold up rather well.
Oh.
Because they're both incredibly good adaptations of Ghostbusters. As like a standalone cartoon, they kind of hold up as well as any show from those decades can, I think. I mean, maybe not as well as like your Batman the Animated Series or anything of that kind of nature, but they, again, just as an adaptation of the franchise, they were both really solid, especially Real Ghostbusters. I mean, that is...
You always worry about a cartoon from this period. I was recently very disappointed when I went back and checked out an episode of the Beetlejuice cartoon and found that it didn't hold up to what I remembered.
God, I forgot they made a Beetlejuice cartoon. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But, I think Extreme Ghostbusters holds up better on principle, though, just because it's got it's got more of a writing team behind it than I think Real Ghostbusters did. Real Ghostbusters was episodic, I think Extreme Ghostbusters was episodic as well. I haven't seen every episode, but the ones that I have seen were pretty episodic. But they had more of a straight-laced
ongoing story arc.
Well, for Extreme Ghostbusters, certainly a better sense of continuity. Real Ghostbusters is entirely episodic. It's episode begins, conflict is introduced to the Ghostbusters, and they stop it. There's no fucking episodic kind of back and forth. And I feel like that works. That's why Extreme holds up better, but Real is just... the title is certainly accurate. It is such a fucking concentrated, well-done, faithful adaptation of the movies and of those characters that I think it's what you want from a Ghostbusters cartoon. It's those guys hanging out some more. And I think that that's the most you can ask from any new Ghostbusters thing, is you get to see those characters or just good characters filling those roles hanging out. So with that said, let's finally get into Ghostbusters 2016 and talk about Melissa McCarthy and the rest of them, because I can't remember the rest of their names. No, wait.
Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones.
Okay, you know what? I actually probably could have remembered those if I would have thought about it for a second.
As a person who follows Saturday Night Live sporadically, I have their names memorized. So,
Yeah.
Oh, and Kate McKinnon.
Yes, I meant.
So they decided to reboot the franchise, do a basically complete remake of the original, and try to give us some new characters for us to enjoy watching hang out. So guys, let me just ask the question: did the busting in 2016 make you feel good? Andres, let's start with you.
Not so much good, but rather mildly satisfied.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Do you want to give a little more detail, or
Uh,
just kind of start off with that?
I do want to say that like the one thing I would use, the one phrase I would say to describe my feelings towards Ghostbusters 2016 would be that it was a thoroughly average experience, and it didn't really get any sort of big reaction out of me. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I didn't say that was a damn good movie. I was just like, for what it's worth, it was better than I thought it would be. And even though, which is not saying much considering my expectations were at an all-time low.
Right.
Unlike the James
Right.
Bond song.
Did you have lower expectations for this than for Genesis?
Let's see. Yes, I did.
Really? I see. I had lower expectations for Genesis just because that was universally panned.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of like everybody kind of said the same thing about this before we saw it, which was it's fine. So I just kind of went in expecting it to be
Here's the
fine.
And then
reason
again, there are critics that are like there are also critics that are all over the map, and so there are some people who
Yeah.
hate it on principle of it
Yeah, and
being,
there was a lot of that
and
too.
there's also people who are endorsing it for the sake of, oh, we gotta praise it so we can get more female-led action movies out there. Or it's
Yep,
like, no,
there
it's
was a
like
lot of
we
that.
enjoy the intention, we appreciate the intention of this behind this movie more than the actual movie itself. So we're gonna give the movie a pass just on that, just on
God, I
its
wish we could.
an intention alone.
God, I
Mhm.
wish we could just separate these fucking movies from all this bullshit politics.
Yeah, definitely. I think we probably won't talk about that element of it very much because it really plays no fucking role
In this
in the
review.
actual movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it does a bit, and we'll have to cover that probably, but it's not to the extent that I think the advertising and Sony would make you think or want you to think. But D, what were your thoughts? Did Bustin make you feel good?
Yes and no. I had a very uneven viewing experience. I feel like we can get into more detail about this when we start talking about the individual elements, but I feel like I liked like half of it,
Yeah.
and then the other half just didn't land at all. However, if I can just contribute to the conversation you were just having with Andreas, I did have much lower expectations for this than I did for Terminator Genesis, and here's why. Terminator sequels have not been good for a long time.
True.
I think I was going into that movie hoping for nothing more than a good time, and if it turned out to be good on top of that, then great. Whereas with this, I'm not a person who hates Ghostbusters 2. I'm a person
No.
who enjoys
Neither do I.
Ghostbusters. I'm a person who enjoys Ghostbusters 2. So that franchise hadn't been ruined for me yet, and so there was much more of a pressure in my mind of hoping that it would be good and just looking at the trailers and thinking, I don't think I'm going to get what I want. But it wound up being better than I expected. Uh, but as Andre said, that's not saying a whole lot considering where my expectations were.
Right. Right. Well, Andrew, let me ask you this quick
Hmm.
because it goes back to what you were saying before. You said that you just saw Ghostbusters 2 for the first time after you walked out of this.
Yes.
What were your, regardless of comparing it to 2016, what were your thoughts on Ghostbusters 2 as a first-time viewing experience?
It's definitely much like this movie, actually. Even though I didn't make the comparison, watching it, it kind of felt like watching the remake again, where I really didn't like the beginning, but as the film progressed, it got better.
Okay, so with that said, did Bustin make you feel good in 2016?
Well, I went into the film having not really low expectations, kind of almost no expectations. I just kind of expected it to, I just went in with a clear mind thinking, okay, maybe this could be good, maybe not. And what I essentially got was pretty much the same as Andres and you, of course, you, Dylan. I, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I would probably rank it as mediocre. I wouldn't say it's one of the worst films of 2016. If you really want to see a bad movie of 2016, go check out Gods of Egypt, or
Hmm.
don't. But
Yeah.
but no, it's not. It has its moments. I can't say I didn't enjoy it, but there's certainly some qualities of it which I don't enjoy.
Right. Okay. So I guess I'll ask myself the question, Bill, did Bustin make you feel good in 2016? And just to continue on the train of insanity, yeah, I kind of feel the same way as you guys. See, Dylan, when we walked out, you summed it up as saying I was kind of 50-50 on it, and what I kept saying to kind of go off on, to stay in that kind of trend, is that I was more like 25-75 on it, 25 leaning to the positive and 75 leaning towards the negative. And because my experience with this movie was conceptually, I thought it was kind of exactly what it needed to be. As a modern remake of the original that's taking the spin on it that it tried to take, which was, we're going to take the original Ghostbusters, which was 4, male comedian leads, and, using that story as a vehicle for them, and do it with this, where it's 4 female comedian leads, and then using that as a vehicle for them. And conceptually, I thought almost everything was like a good idea to approach that. I thought all of what they did do with the whole, well, this is a female-led action-adventure story, fantasy story, comedy, made in an era, at a time where that's not still a common trend. I thought all of the ideas boiling around with that were fine and were a good idea for this kind of story. But at the end of the day, execution-wise, I just didn't laugh that much. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, I was sitting there in the theater feeling like I was slogging through a lot of the scenes. It really, really dragged to me. And it just didn't land to me. I thought execution-wise, it fell very, very flat. And I'm with you. I think everybody said this, but I thought it didn't get better until the end. Which is interesting because everybody else I've heard talk about it has said that it kind of falls off the wagon towards the end, where it starts off strong and then it kind of peters out later. And I disagree, because to me, early on, the only thing it's doing is going from a string of improv scenes between those lead actresses.
I really
much of the improv didn't land for me.
I really hate
almost all of it.
I really hate the first third of this movie, honestly.
Yeah, it was painful.
And then the second third was okay, and then the final third was the best, just because that's where all the action was, and I felt...
Once they started ghost busting, I got on board with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't as much improv, because there was more plot going on.
The only thing that the first act really had going for it was that they had some interesting character ideas going on with Kristen Wiig. I feel like she was the only character in the movie that was actually playing a character, because everybody else in this movie was just doing their same shtick that we see them do in every fucking movie.
And in fact, it kind of felt more like a string of Saturday Night Live skits.
It did. I completely
was
agree.
Doing her fucking awkward improv shtick, and Kate McKinnon was doing her "I'm weird" shtick, and Leslie Jones was doing her "I'm black" shtick, and it was just.
Although, thank God, Leslie Jones's "I'm black" shtick, it wasn't as over the top as the trailers led us to believe. At least in my opinion.
I agree. I thought she was Dylan. I actually think she was more of a character than Kristen Wiig was.
I'm not against an "I'm black" shtick, and "I'm black" shtick can be carried off very well. And knowing Leslie Jones from Saturday Night Live, few people right now are doing it better than her. I really love her "I'm black" shtick. I'm just saying, I've seen it from her consistently on Saturday nights for so long that it just didn't feel like anything new to me. Whereas the thing that really I liked about Kristen Wiig's character, and why I say I feel like she's the only one who was being a character, was all the stuff at the beginning about how she was into the paranormal when she was young, and then she was sort of ashamed of that. I thought that was all really interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of the other characters in that first third had anything like that going on for them.
I completely agree with you from a conceptual level. That she certainly had the most motivation and interesting facets to who she was. Faucets, that's not a word. Just to her character and to what she was doing and why she was doing it. But when it came down to living with these people and seeing them act as people, I thought that Leslie Jones was the most kind of well, I like this person. I would spend time with this person. Everybody else was and I said this too when we walked out. Mm-hmm. Everybody else felt like they had a mental disability, and they were kind of. It didn't feel like we were watching people. It felt like we were watching
cartoon characters.
Cartoon characters, but not fun cartoon characters. Annoying cartoon characters. It felt almost like a Looney Tunes knockoff at some points, or even like a like a sanitized version of Family Guy. Maybe
it's like everybody's SpongeBob, and there's no Squidward there to balance it out.
Perfect.
Which
See,
is
that's
what
the other thing
Winston
too.
was there for, I guess, in the original, and Peter Venkman.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Bill Murray is the Harrison Ford Han Solo of Ghostbusters. He has so much disdain for it, and the character has so much disdain for it that helps the movie because it gives you a ground point to go, wow, isn't this all crazy and bullshit? Let's just have fun with it. That's what Peter Venkman is there for. Somebody to be sarcastic about and kind of, he's the character to hang a lantern on, where it's like, well, all this is weird and kind of dumb, but it's fun, right? That's what you have a character like Han Solo there for. This movie didn't really have a Peter Venkman or a Han Solo or anything like that. It felt this movie very much so felt up its own ass to me.
Well, you could say Wig was trying to be that Venkman, but the problem is she wasn't very good at it. I think the moment that kind of symbolizes, not symbolizes, but kind of like shows that a bit for how predictable I even kind of think a lot of these characters are is when she meets up with McCarthy for the first time in many years. She's kind of like there's like having this segment where she doesn't want to be there, and all of a sudden they're having this entire segment about ghosts and stuff, and I'm just thinking in my mind going, leave, and immediately she gets magnetized by McCarthy, and they're then going out hunting for ghosts instead. What the hell happened to your job?
She got fired.
Well, yeah, but she got fired, but she could have easily just left there and continued on with her life.
At that point,
no, you have a good point.
At that point, she didn't get fired yet, Bill. She gets fired after her and McCarthy go off to bust ghosts, and that video of her gets out on the internet after she got.
By the way, I've noticed that there's this become like ever since YouTube has grown more and more relevant in today's pop culture. It's sort of become a thing for writers now that whenever somebody catches something extraordinary on film and uploads it to YouTube, there's now a new cliche of, oh, everybody thinks that our YouTube video is just special effects.
It's not even,
and it's starting to annoy me because it's something I've been noticing in more and more films.
That is a good point, Andres. I'll tell you what the thing about that cliche that annoys me more. Just assuming that every video on YouTube goes viral. Like, that is an assumption that a lot of writers make. They're like, anything that goes on YouTube will go viral.
Half of these movie plots should end with, oh, our YouTube video got like 10 views.
That was the premise for the Gem and the Holograms movie.
Yeah, it's the assumption that if you put something on YouTube and there's just everybody will watch it. And it's just not true. Like,
YouTube does not
operate. So many people get away with so much stupid stuff because nobody watches some YouTube videos. You need a hook, and there's nothing. And it bothers me more when there is no hook explained in the story. Like, why are people watching these ghosts like their videos, their ghost videos? Like, is there something about them that's making them go viral? And if there is, I'd like it to be addressed in the story because I think that's important. But anyway, that's what annoys me about that cliche.
They have this Field of Dreams mentality where it's like, if you upload it, they will come, and it's like, no.
Exactly. Yeah.
No.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Well, let me get back to the characters, the character discussion we were having before.
Yeah.
I really like that there aren't any. I really like that they don't make an attempt to really just straight up copy any of the characters from the original. No. There are shades of everybody in each character. Everybody fills a certain role that was filled in the original.
Obviously, Leslie Jones is your Winston, and
well, right, but everybody fills the role, but they're not the same character. Everybody is a completely different character, and I liked the differences.
Kate McKinnon is sort of a modern take on the Egon character.
Yeah.
But other than
the
that,
socially awkward character.
Other than that, we don't have a clear Aykroyd or a clear Venkman.
Again, I think everybody fills a role. Like, obviously, Kristen Wiig is your Bill Murray, and then Melissa McCarthy is your Dan Aykroyd, and
right, because she's the eccentric
Kate
one.
McKinnon. Yeah, and Kate McKinnon is your Harold Ramis. Yeah. Well, but it's also, just think about it marquee-wise. Like, Dan Aykroyd is the second Ghostbuster, and Bill Murray is the first one, and that's the way it goes in this. And then Leslie Jones is the black one. So,
well,
I mean, listen, they make it very obvious. They play that up a lot.
She has a whole line in the movie where she's like, "I don't know if this was a race thing or a lady thing."
Yeah, I loved that. That moment was great, and she was my favorite Ghostbusters. So let me ask.
That's one of the few lines from the trailers that I actually always enjoyed. It's also one of the few jokes in the movie from the trailers that didn't get butchered by not knowing when to cut.
Yep,
Yeah.
there was so much of the improv in this movie got killed by just dragging it out for too long.
And that was something I
But
was fearing for when I saw the trailers, because even within the limited span of a trailer, they had their jokes go on too
Well,
long.
that's why the humor in this movie doesn't land, is that they drag it out way too long. And I'll give you the perfect example. One joke in the trailer that I loved more than anything. I don't remember which trailer it was in. I think it was in one of the more recent trailers. There's this joke where they're talking to the cops and they're like, "Oh, it was a ghost," and he's like, and in the trailer he goes, "Oh, what, like Patrick Swayze?" And then you just cut to Melissa McCarthy. She's like, "Yeah, he was behind me and we made a vase." That was a great joke. I was like, that's great. They drag it out so fucking long in the movie to the point that it went from being my favorite joke in the trailer to one of my least favorite in the movie, because they just drag it on and then they start piling in all these other Patrick Swayze references for no rhyme or reason.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the moment where they kind of started talking about Patrick Swayze movies. That was a little funny, but it went on too long, just like everything else
Just
did.
keeps going, and I'm like, God, that was such a great joke when it was like 2 seconds long.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of fat in this movie, I think, and I'm not talking about people, or ghosts, or ghosts. I mean, listen, there were a lot of hefty folks in this film. I'm not gonna lie.
Melissa McCarthy's been losing weight recently, you know.
That
Everybody looked great. I don't want to fucking make this about appearances,
Hey,
but
folks been on Weight Watchers, Bill. What the hell's wrong with you?
I'm sorry. The fucking main dude, like, yeah, he was the main villain dude. I mean,
Yeah.
he looked great. He looked perfect. He looked pristine.
He looked like
just
a certain individual we know.
yeah.
And we love that
was
individual.
hilarious. It was so. It's not. It's. I feel kind of bad, but at the same time,
I feel bad too.
I
Yeah.
just can't help but have a big smile on my face when I realize, oh my god, he does look like our friend.
Well, it was funny. It was funny because before we left the con to go see the movie, he was like, "Everybody keeps telling me I look like the bad guy from that movie." I was like, "Oh, really? That's weird." And then we're watching the movie. I was like, "Oh my god!"
It's because it was so uncanny, and and we would bring it up, but it's like he kind of got a little sensitive about it, so we're not gonna bring it up.
No.
No,
honestly.
I'm not gonna name drop the guy.
No.
Even Baker was like, oh.
Yeah. So David, you're safe.
What if the villain in this movie was David?
Oh my! David should be the villain of the new This Ghost. If they make a sequel, if they make like a remake version of Ghostbusters 2, he should be the weird art dude who's fucking hitting on.
It's got to be Electro.
Chris Hemsworth.
It's got to be Electro David though.
Of course. I mean, what other David is there? But who is y'all's favorite Ghostbuster?
Kate McKinnon. I just like the type of character who does not give a fuck about social norms and just does whatever she wants.
I liked the premise of her character. I liked the premises of all of them. I just thought that in execution, all of them were annoying except for Leslie Jones.
The whole thing about like a joke going
by the end of the movie, I was in the same boat as you, Bill. By the time it was all said and done, Leslie Jones did wind up being my favorite.
Yeah. Andrew, how about you?
I'm gonna have to agree with you too, Leslie Jones, because Kristen Wiig, she has a better backstory, but she was boring to watch.
She was so boring. My God, her character was nothing when it came to actually being a Ghostbuster.
Yeah, Kate McKinnon had her moments, but I got very annoyed with her by the end. And Melissa McCarthy is just Melissa McCarthy.
She's Melissa McCarthy.
Although I will say this, even though he's not a Ghostbuster, my favorite character is Chris Hemsworth as Nocturnine, because like he was the only I don't give a fuck. He's the only character that actually got a laugh out of me, got me to physically laugh at the screen.
But okay. So let's talk about Chris Hemsworth, because he's been a point of contention for a lot of
like Kate McKinnon and Leslie Jones. They made me smile, but Chris Hemsworth actually made me laugh.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay, fair enough.
I hear what you're saying.
Suppose.
But for me, Chris Hemsworth was the character that made me cringe the most.
Yeah,
just because So I mentioned before, everybody feels like they have a mental disability, and let me explain why.
Yeah.
Because it feels like everybody gets hung up on something, and then they talk about it for 10 minutes.
Yes.
And that's the whole thing with the improv being dragged on.
The thing about it is, yeah, everybody in this movie feels like that, but Chris Hemsworth is the only one who literally feels too dumb to function.
That's the thing, is I can't buy that guy is still breathing. How does he exist? Like, and this is
And
a
that's the thing,
cartoon.
like, yeah, this
This movie is a cartoon.
He should have already died just because he forgot to breathe. Like, what the?
But when you feel like a character is a cartoon amongst a bunch of cartoons, I think that's a bit of an issue. I didn't like watching him because I just felt like this person does not exist. And I know that sounds stupid because, again, we're watching a movie about cartoon characters being played by real people. But there was just something about it where I wasn't laughing, didn't find him compelling, and he just was a waste of space to me. I felt like there were funnier things going on around him that I wanted to get to. So I don't know. There's been a lot of talk of like, oh well, how does it feel, men, to have a character who's a nothing character who doesn't do anything and is just a waste of space? And I'm like, I mean, it feels like every other time we had a male character in a movie who was a waste of space. You know, like I get that, like, he was supposed to be there for a very specific kind of gender swap role kind of purpose, but I didn't find it fun to watch or engaging to watch, you know? And if that was the point, well done, but it made me disengaged with the film. So I guess if that was the intention, good job. But anyway, so why don't we talk about the villain then, since we already brought that up. I actually really liked the villain, and Chris Hemsworth was at his best when he was playing the villain.
Yes, I loved it when he got possessed by the ghost of the villain. Spoilers, because suddenly Chris Hemsworth remembered how to act, and it was great.
You know what it was when he was just playing the character. I forget his name. Kevin, was that it?
Rowan. No, wait, Chris Hemsworth's character? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about Chris. His name was Kevin.
Kevin, yeah.
He was mumbling the whole time, and he was just so, like, he didn't have any energy.
Yeah.
It felt like when he finally got possessed by guy who we may or may not know.
David.
When he got possessed by David, he had some energy, you're right, and he had some life to him, and he was being funny. I think I laughed the most at him when he was the villain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
those superhero references during the final act really took me. Like, I really couldn't stand those jokes.
Oh,
yeah, like, it's like, oh, we cast Thor, so we have to make a bunch of superhero references, and it's like, well, no.
It's like who's the hot model? I'm like, I get it. It's Chris Hemsworth. Move on.
Right. So much of this movie is just, well, first they have this joke that they drill into the ground where it's just Kristen Wiig drooling over him for hours on end, and then he gets possessed, and then, like, they have the Superman references with those cops down in the basement, and then there's the scene where the remake of that scene from The Mask, where he jumps down on top of that thing and makes all the characters pose. I found out, Bill, that was actually supposed to be way more of a Mask moment, because you know that dance-off that was in the ending credits? That was supposed to be in the movie itself.
Right.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, that's gotta be what's his name? Paul Feig? He's the director?
Yeah.
He must have watched The Mask and gone, I'm gonna reference that or just steal that, because that's what it was.
I love The Mask, so I actually might have liked this movie a little bit more if they had kept that in. But
I wonder if it was like an intentional reference or if it was like a total ripoff moment. Like, I can't. Where do you draw the line? You know.
I can only hope intentional reference. Anyway, but when he jumps down on that thing right before he does that to all those cops, one of the cops is like, "Who's the hunk?" I'm like, I fucking get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Every joke that was funny got dragged into the ground, or most of them did. I kind of liked that joke where it was, they go back to that old, like, revolutionary house that was that was haunted at the very beginning. And they talk and they go up to, like, the person who works there, and she's like, I'm looking for this person. And he goes, they've been dead for 15 years, and they all freak out.
Yeah.
And then it turns out he was that they actually met the junior, the son of that guy, and he's standing right there.
That was a good joke, because there was a
payoff.
Like that.
There was a payoff, and then we moved on. It was great.
Exactly. And as soon as that payoff was there, you're right. It was done, and we moved on to more shitty improv. Thank God.
Just what I wanted.
The ghosts in this, I really felt like they lacked, like, a spark. You know what I mean? Like, they lacked, like,
creativity.
No, because I felt like the designs were
I think
fine.
that's just
I
because
just feel like the use of the ghost was just like, well, we need a ghost, so here's a
Oh,
ghost.
to help
You
progress
know?
the plot.
Yeah, like it
oh,
didn't feel like the actual ghosts themselves did anything unique scene to scene. Like it just felt because I thought the designs were fine. Like I liked the winged one. I liked the revolutionary ghost at the
You
beginning.
just felt they didn't
I
have an identity in and of themselves.
in the moment,
Yeah.
like just in the moment of the
Like they try to
scene. Like
give like an entire backstory to the first ghost, but other than that, everyone was just like, "Oh, here's another ghost. We're just gonna plop
well,
into
I
this
think that's
an
but
inner."
the ghost doesn't do anything that's specific to that backstory. They all just do vaguely ghosty
I
things,
think
you
the part
know?
of the reason for that is the fact that the ghosts in this movie are fully CG, just because in the old Ghostbusters movies, it was not that way. And when you make something by hand, there's just an inherent amount of personality that comes through in it. Uh,
The CG didn't bug me as much as it did a lot of people, but
Mhm.
it was just again just scene to scene. The ghosts themselves did nothing original to me. Like
Except
when
Slimer and Girl Slimer, I think.
yeah, that was fine because it was like that was a recognizable design and he was doing recognizable things.
Mhm.
But every other ghost was just like, well, here's a sort of interesting, unique design. Here's what it has to do to serve the story. And I feel like there's a little bit of that in the original Ghostbusters. I mean, there's that big scene where it's the big New York magic freakout moment,
Mhm.
yes.
and of course all of those ghosts just kind of go off and scatter, and it's just their designs that we get to look at.
Mhm.
But whatever, that's what they're there for. They're just there for general spookiness. Well, here's a bunch of random ghosts, you
One of
know?
my favorite moments is actually from Ghostbusters 2, where they're like, "We
Yeah.
just got a call from the dock. The Titanic has landed." And they cut to the dock
better,
workers,
better,
and they're watching the
better.
ghosts get off the Titanic, and the guy's like, "Better late than never."
Yeah, that was great. I also love rewatching Ghostbusters 2 the other night. I love the fur coat that
Yeah,
all the animals come
that
back
Oh
to
yeah,
scared the
life.
shit out of me when I
that
was a
was
kid.
Yeah, that was a genuinely scary moment.
That's
funny.
probably the
There's
best
also that giant monster
Oh, I
ghost that
remember,
comes
yeah.
out of those
of all the
arches.
things.
That was
Of all
awesome
the
Yeah,
too.
things they
Bill,
rehashed in the movie, their its magic moment was pretty damn good.
yeah, yeah,
In this one,
In Ghostbusters 2.
oh,
Mm.
Ghostbusters 2,
yeah.
yeah,
Bill, funny you mentioned.
great song too. Flip City's
Yeah,
great.
Bill, funny you mentioned that that scene where in Ghostbusters 2 where the foxes attack the woman wearing them. That was actually
Yeah,
supposed to be a joke from the first film, but they put it in the second film.
that does not surprise me at all. Like most of that movie is. Well, what didn't we do in the first one? Let's do it here.
Yeah, pretty much.
There was a bit of that in this as well. They clearly must have read some of the early Ghostbusters scripts written by Dan Aykroyd when it was called Ghost Smashers, because the subway ghost is actually from that. There was supposed to be a ghost that was attacking a subway line, and there was supposed to be like the opening bit, I think,
And one thing this
of
movie,
one of those
one
scripts.
thing
Yeah.
2016 did manage to do was subvert my expectations a little bit, because I remember when we were sitting there watching it, there was a moment when I thought the It's Magic moment was going to happen. I even leaned over to Bill and I was like, I think this is our It's Magic moment. And it didn't happen at that time. That was when the villain winds up committing suicide, and you think, well, that wrapped up quickly, and then
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
progress from there. Thank God he wrote his entire plot plan down in a book.
Right? I hate shit like that where it's like I'm gonna
Like,
draw out my entire plan.
remember when the lizard did that in the first Amazing Spider-Man?
Yep. Well, but it really annoyed me in this though because like he literally wrote it out like a comic he thought people were gonna read because like he made it like easy to interpret for somebody who
Even
didn't
better.
actually know what the plan was.
Even
you
better,
know?
he wrote it in Kristen Wiig's book.
Yep. Like that really annoyed me. Uh, but yeah. So why don't we talk about a bit more of the ghost busting side of this because this is another thing that annoyed me because it's different than the original and I think it makes less sense. So, in terms of the actual, you got four people who are motivated to become Ghostbusters. They don't start a business in this, and
It was like
instead it's a
technically,
research.
I don't know, kind of it was like a business, but then again, it's got like they keep bringing up the financial aspect. It's like, how are we going to afford this place, or we got to do something to raise money, or we need money for better equipment,
I actually
and then
thought
they
that
kind of
was a
drop
little.
that.
I actually thought, well, at first when they were doing it, before they dropped it, it was a little clever because
Yeah.
because in the original movie, there's this hilarious ongoing joke where they pretty much like don't give a fuck about the financials. Like somebody like one of them signs up for like a third mortgage to like afford the firehouse, and then they just sort of shrug it off like, well, that'll have to be resolved later, and then it actually come back to bite them in the ass a little bit in the second movie. But but in this movie, it felt like at first there was like more of a running joke of actually trying to be financially responsible. Like they look at the firehouse and then they find out how much it is, and they're like, "Well, fuck that."
And I do like how that kind of like that's like a good reflection of like modern day like housing prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's
So
true. I
that
liked the
started out
Chinese food.
clever. That started out clever, and then I think, like Andre said, I think they dropped it a little bit later on.
But I just mean in terms of why they become Ghostbusters. They're not starting a business in this version. It's a research group. They're not like busting ghosts as it's not an exterminators thing. They're like starting a sort of like indie research group. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it felt
They're not ghosts. They're not really even Ghostbusters to me
yeah,
because they're not doing it for
They're
a.
more
They're not like
it
exterminators.
felt like a bunch
pretending.
of it felt like a bunch of incidents that suddenly makes into this little indies group. That's what it
Yeah.
kind of felt like to
Yeah.
me when I was watching it, because it kind of felt like that these like these little mishap incidents suddenly made them into this indies group.
They're paranormal investigators and they're not getting paid for it, and I think that's why I found the whole movie less like emotionally sort of resonant, because the best thing about the
They're
original
more trying to be
Ghostbusters
like
is it's
legitimate.
people trying, it's a bunch of blue collar guys trying to start up a business and then they have to save the world.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I love about the original Ghostbusters, and that's not really, it's here a little bit, but it's for a different reason. This is about people who society really like tried to punch down and then they rose up, and that's great. But I missed the business side of it. I missed the we're doing this because we need to make money side
Yeah,
of it.
they're more trying to be legitimate scientists in this movie.
And I guess it's like, oh, they're not being greedy and wanting money, but I'm like, but they would though, like it's less realistic, it's less relatable, it makes less sense for the story because it's not a sustainable operation then. Like the only reason that ghost busting is sustained, or at least in theory sustainable in the original, is because they're gonna get paid for it.
Right.
And I mean, but
There's
that's
always
and the thing about
there's never a shortage of ghosts because people keep dying. So
right, exactly. Well, I mean, the idea in this, in every Ghostbusters movie we've ever seen, the whole reason why the Ghostbusters are even able to be a sustainable business is because there's some force that's causing ghosts to pop up more now. You watch other versions, you watch expanded universe Ghostbusters stuff, and they kind of have to go like, well, I guess now ghosts are just a regular problem for New York City. That's always a weird, like, nonsensical thing in the Ghostbusters universe. Is like it's only there's only a paranormal outbreak when there needs to be,
yeah.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that with the whole idea of it. It was essentially follow your dream, but don't worry about everything else. But in reality, you kind of do have to worry about that.
Yeah, and people have brought this up as well. This movie, I think, is a lot more of an over-the-top comedy than the original is. Like, the original, I feel, is a lot more earnest than this.
Oh, the original is so much more subdued.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And that's why
more
I think that's
straightforward.
funnier. I think the jokes pop out more for that reason. Because it doesn't feel like we're watching fucking cartoon characters, But whatever, that's a stylistic choice that they made for this version. And I think you can make that work with the Ghostbusters brand. I just didn't laugh at it,
Yeah, because I remember.
I mentioned before that I liked like half of this movie. Obviously, we've been talking about the part that did not work for me at all was just the humor and the execution of that, and most of the characters, most of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
But the half that I actually really did enjoy was there are some really good plot things in this. I loved the whole arc of like actually seeing them develop the proton pack. Like they don't just have the proton pack all of a sudden. Like there's like prototypes, and we get to see different stages of it. All the new weapons they came up with in this movie were really cool.
They're awesome. I don't think they get to use them enough in the end, but they're pretty cool.
The proton like shotguns and like those things that Kate McKinnon had that she used like lassos and shit. The fucking the ghost chipper or whatever they called it.
Even though they're clear. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Even though they're clearly there to sell toys, at least they look cool.
Well, they should make another video game just because I would love to use all of
They
those.
are.
They did, and it was terrible.
Did they? They did another video game for this?
Did that come out on consoles, Andres? That's a mobile game, right?
No, yes, it came out on console.
Oh,
No idea.
wow. I did not know that. I gotta look this up.
It
Wow.
looked like Ghostbusters 2016 video game, and it acts as like a sequel to this movie, but with all on second team of Ghostbusters that they're probably all trying to do to make like a cinematic multimedia cross-media universe.
Oh, so it's not about the team in this movie?
No, but it's in the universe of this movie. I don't know how it works.
I'm gonna look it up.
I had no idea that this was even a thing.
And it's a top-down shooter.
Well, what I really meant is I wish these weapons could have been available in the other Ghostbusters video game.
So
Yeah,
like,
there-
it's,
I'm kind of sad this is bad because I actually enjoy this kind of game. I like top-down shooters. You can play on your yeah, you can play like mobily or whatever, but
Mhm.
yeah, but it's not on your phone. So
No.
see, this should be on your phone. Why isn't this on phones?
Like
It looks like a fucking mobile
here's a
game.
screenshot of this. And funny enough, like back in 2011, there was another Ghostbusters game called Ghostbusters Sanctum of Slime, which also had this same top-down shooter thing gameplay.
One of the best features of the 2008
I
game
mean,
was
2009.
Oh, I thought that came out. No, wait, my bad. All right, fair enough. I forgive you, Andres, for contradicting me. Um, was that there was like you guys know Horde mode in Gears of War,
Yeah.
or like Nazi zombies in Call of Duty?
yeah.
Yeah.
It was wave after wave of enemy, and you just got to take them down.
Mhm.
I love that in games because it's so addictive.
Mhm.
And that had a version of that, and it was fucking great because there was a ranking system based on how many ghosts you busted and how efficiently you busted them. I really loved that. So I wish that I wish that this game had that, and then it was on phones, and you didn't have to pay for it, because then I would totally play it.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
But I was gonna bring up something else as well. Oh, I just had this thought as well. Just talking about Ghostbusters video games. Wouldn't it be fun? You know, you got Pokemon Go as a thing right now, Andres. I know
Yeah.
you're very into that. You know,
Yeah.
you're grown up man child, whatever.
Speak for yourself, man.
True.
Yeah, we need a
This is true.
Ghostbusters version of that game.
That's
You
what I
can
was
call
about to
it-
say. Ghostbusters, Go Busters.
You can call it
Great.
Go.
Oh, wait a second. I think that's a thing.
Oh, that is
Go.
a thing.
Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters.
Ghost,
Oh, yeah, you said it belongs
Ghostbusters
to
Global.
There you go.
Ghostbusters Go.
Ghostbusters International, which is already a thing.
Ghostbusters.
Go
Dash.
Ghostbusters. Oh wait, that would remind people of Inspector
Go
Gadget.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Go Ghostbuster. Go Gadget Ghostbuster.
Dash Ghostbuster. I don't know. You'd figure it out. But the point.
Yeah. See, that's the thing too. A tokusatsu Ghostbusters would also be awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of like Japanese comedians together, and you make a Japanese Ghostbusters.
Oh my god, there
team.
is
That'd
a
be
Japanese
awesome.
Ghostbusters. I gotta look for it right now.
There
was
is?
like it was a bunch of female like talk show or
I
comedians
thought Andres
I've
was
seen
about
on
to say.
television, and they did like a little promotion for the new Ghostbusters.
All right, let's see it.
I thought Andres
Okay.
was about to say, "Oh, there are Japanese comedians."
Do they have stand-up comedy in Japan, right? Like that's a
Oh yeah,
thing.
they do.
Okay, I'm not aware of the Japanese comedy
Do
scene.
they actually stand up while they're delivering the comedy, or do they like sit on a floor mat with a fan?
I know there's a Japanese style of comedies where people just sit down and tell a story.
Mm,
Kinda like
our
so
stand-up
so
comedians.
podcasts.
Did you get?
But yeah, I
Ron,
just sent
did
you
get-
I just sent you a link to the Japanese cover of Ghostbusters.
Mm,
I'm listening to.
Oh, okay.
It looks terrifying.
interesting. See, I really like the proton packs in the new movie. I do not like the suits.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, I
They're-
was okay with them.
They're fine. I mean, whatever. They don't actually matter. But just like looking at them just looking at them for a while aesthetically out of context, I'm just like, they're ugly to me.
I guess that's kind of like I guess in the original consent of Ghostbusters, where like they're just like custodians or janitors, and so it's like it's not meant to be like the prettiest looking of jobs.
Yeah, but then the question.
No,
becomes-
I get
the
that,
question
but I just
becomes, why do
don't
they
like
need?
looking at them.
The question then becomes, why do they need fucking janitor outfits if they're not like an extermination force like they were in?
Well, no, they actually explained where they come from in the 2016 movie, as
Right.
opposed to
Did they?
They just only wear them just so that they won't get covered in their own clothes covered in slime.
right, because the whole point of this movie is that all the ghosts are made out of ectoplasm and there's slime everywhere. So every time they bust a ghost before they actually become proper Ghostbusters, they get
Mhm.
covered in slime. And that was the whole running gag with Kristen Wiig. So Leslie Jones, they're actually like they're subway worker kind of outfits, which I think is pretty cool. Because I imagine if you're gonna be busting ghosts, you're gonna be doing it in like subway environments where there is a lot of slime and gross
Although,
stuff. And everything.
in terms of the designs of the costumes, what do you think of like the fact that the only major change they made to the costume was they took out the name tags and just added orange stripes?
Don't they have name tags towards the end?
I don't see any name tags in any of the promotional material.
I thought they got them towards the end of the movie though, because I did remember them being in there.
I thought they were on the I thought they were on the arms.
I don't
Yeah,
remember.
were they on the sleeves?
I thought they had. I know that the Ghostbusters logo is on there somewhere.
Yeah. The logo's on is on the I believe the right on the left sleeve, but I believe they had their names on the right side.
Oh God, that was something that didn't need explaining. I don't need a 5 minute scene to tell me where they get their logo from.
Oh,
yeah.
that was so bad.
oh.
Number one, they revealed that in the trailer, so not showing it was fucking dumb.
Mhm.
If they would have not put that in the trailer
Mhm.
and just had him spray painting something, I think that would have been a good joke, actually. Like, to have him, like, he's describing this ghost and everything, and it's like, it was this, it was so scary, I'm just gonna draw it for you
But
guys.
then it turns out to be a regular cartoon ghost, which looks
yeah.
nothing like any of the ghosts we see until the very end, only because that ghost was inspired by this logo.
Yeah, can I
Well,
just
again,
say,
if-
what a shitty graffiti artist.
Oh, yeah,
Oh my
awful.
God.
Awful.
I've seen a lot of graffiti in my time, and this guy is pretty low on the totem, I gotta say.
Total shit.
Yeah, but
total
yeah,
shit.
but being a guy who has not seen any of the trailers and who saw the joke for the first time, even I kind of thought that was fucking stupid.
Did you know they were building to it being the logo, though?
I did. I kind of figured, I was like, okay, this is gonna be the logo in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, see
How
that?
could you
see,
not?
that's
All the,
interesting.
I mean, all the jokes in this movie are so fucking mysterious, like.
Because my point was I thought that joke might play for somebody who hadn't seen the trailer, but I guess not. All right.
No, it's as soon as he started to describe it, I knew it was gonna be the Ghostbusters logo.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk about that element of it then? Why don't we talk about sort of references to the original and cameos and everything, and
Here's one thing I
like
want to.
this actually being a Ghostbusters
Here's
movie.
one thing I feel bears bringing up. What do you guys think of that weird ass heavy metal concert scene?
Oh, that was
the most-
so
That was
fucking
the most blandest, the least metal concert I've ever seen.
It was.
I hated the
and then
moment
Ozzy's there for some reason, and like when they're standing outside, all the people in line are like, "Oh, we're gonna see Ozzy," and then it's some other band. Are they opening for Ozzy? And if so, why are they opening for Ozzy?
And
is
given
Ozzy supposed to be playing Ozzy?
And did they pay Marvel to use Fang Foom? Because I wasn't expecting him to be in this movie. But I was. But I
And
mean,
given-
I like.
Maybe that was Sony's thing when they gave when they let Marvel borrow Spider-Man. They're like, "Can we have Fang Foom in our Ghostbusters reboot?" And they were like, "Fine."
Well, they got Chris Hemsworth, so there you go.
They were.
I think he was supposed to look more like the Jersey Devil than anything else.
They were like,
though.
"We're
Or
not
just
going to
like a
use
traditional
It
devil.
did look like the Jersey Devil.
Because
Yeah.
sure as hell isn't going to use Fang Foom. They pussied out on the Mandarin, like.
Yeah, though I could
They
say
did.
this though, as a guy who just came back from a Guns N' Roses concert, I can vouch that is not how a rock concert would go.
Yeah, and it was also in a weird place. Like, I mean, if you go to a concert in New York City, it's likely to be in a nice theater like that. Like, I went to a Dream Theater concert in Radio City, and that was bizarre. Like it's just like a weird clash of like sort of grimy metal or even just kind of any kind of like, sort of rock or anything, and then mixed with like this really nice like pristine theater setting. It doesn't really work, Like I think if you're gonna go to a rock concert, it should be outdoors. But as somebody who doesn't go to rock concerts, that's my take.
I could never go to a modern Guns N' Roses concert because there's no Slash and it breaks my heart.
No, there's Slash.
Oh, did he come back?
Yeah, he did. I was
for the longest fucking time, him and Axl Rose couldn't stand each other.
No, they're still they got back together, and matter of fact, I saw Slash have a bunch of guitar solos, really
Nice.
good.
Wow, I can get behind that then.
It's one really good positive thing to come out of this review.
Yeah.
Yes.
I persuaded Dylan to go see Guns N' Roses again.
Well, you more like, gave him. You more made him approve of it. Like I don't think he's gonna leave it.
No, I'm not gonna go to concerts, man. I'm like,
All right, well,
But getting back, to, yeah, but
he didn't even go to the Kira Fukube concert from our first G Fest.
Neither did
or
you,
the second
asshole.
one last year.
Neither did you, assholes. We still haven't checked out anything at the Pickwick.
No.
No, it's gonna happen next year. It's gonna fucking happen, unless there's like a really good movie. Well, I mean, we'll just go to a movie on a different night. We'll go to see like a new movie on a different
Unless
night.
we have to go see 9 Lives too. I mean,
you mean 18 lives?
Yeah, sure. I was really pissed that we didn't get that trailer.
No, that was disappointing. I saw a new trailer for that. I saw a TV spot rather for that today, and I was like, Dylan.
Because when we were
I'm in
sitting,
Japan and don't have to see that bullshit.
because we were sitting at the table eating dinner before we went to see Ghostbusters, and Jacob had no idea what 9 Lives was, and I explained it to him, and I think I made his day. And then I was really hoping that we would get that trailer in the movies, that he could see that fucking trailer, because I basically sold him right off. I was like, okay, so Christopher Walken, and he's like, go on. Like, who has magical powers? Go on. Turns Kevin Spacey into a cat. And I think, like, the heavens opened up and he was just filled with joy.
Yeah, that's really. Yeah, no, that would have been that would have made the whole trip worthwhile if we would have gotten to see that trailer in the theaters. All right, so why don't we wrap up this whole review on talking about all the references to the original and all the elements of actual Ghostbusters that are in
We
here.
didn't even talk about that. Well, mostly I didn't want to talk about the cameos in that. They felt really unnecessary, and I think that if we hadn't known about them, they would have been, at least if you had like one or two cameos, it would have been a decent surprise. However, by having so many cameos in there, you're only pointing out the fact that this is a reboot to a much better movie. I mean, as much as people say, "Hey, man, don't judge, don't compare this to the original. You gotta let this stand on its own, man." It's difficult to do that when you're constantly being reminded of the original Ghostbusters.
Yeah, well,
And it's a problem, especially because this is. You're right. It's not even in the same universe as the original Ghostbusters, and I think that's why a lot of people just didn't care about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was certainly my whole thing.
Like the reason
I don't care about this now because it's not in the same universe that I liked when I was a kid.
Right. The only reason why you
well,
care
it's hard
about
to hold the movie up to its own merits when the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to hold the movie up on its own merits when the people who are making the movie are trying so hard to cash in on the fact that it's a reboot of this thing that you already know.
And add to the fact that one of the cameos acts as a minor character in the movie. So it's kind of hard to not make the comparison when he's going to be there for a good amount of screen time until eventually he's off screen.
That being said, Bill Murray did have the best cameo.
No. Are you kidding me? They killed it. They killed it because it was another case of them going on too long. If Bill Murray's cameo had just been him on the TV the first time we saw him, I would have been perfectly fine with it. Then they bring him into the plot for no reason, just so that they can kill him, and killing him adds nothing to the movie.
That was so bizarre. That got
completely
completely dropped.
The policemen
they forget about it
there
2 seconds later. They forget about it 2 seconds later. Like
that
like
was
you think there would have been like serious repercussions to have a murder take place in front of their own headquarters.
And because it was her fault.
Yeah, I was about to say
him. She killed him.
The Bill Murray death in Zombieland. The Bill Murray death in Zombieland was much better.
I mean, which was also a murder, but that's a different context. Like this was a murder.
Not to mention, it adds to the fact that all it does is two things. One, it kills off Bill Murray, and then it adds how kind of stupid the characters can act when one of them wants to prove that they're a ghost by opening by using the trap they used for the ghost that they just captured.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
that.
I'll tell you what the best cameos in the movie were, okay? Janine's cameo was great because it was just a minor little thing and she actually contributed something to the story.
Oh yeah, I forgot about her cameo. Hers was good.
Janine's cameo was good. Ernie Hudson at the end was great.
Yeah, like if they had
Ghostbusters 3, Ernie's Gotta Eat.
Again, like if we didn't knew about the cameos, that would have been a really nice surprise. But given how we knew it was going to happen, like I knew from like the very beginning, the moment that Leslie Jones started talking about her what was it, uncle?
Yeah, that
uncle. I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be Ernie Hudson. Okay,
yeah. See,
they're still building up to this. Why are you putting off the delaying the inevitable?
Yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away, but I still enjoyed the cameo. And then the best cameo to me, just because I thought it was the most clever, was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and the way they used him in this movie.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that. Yeah, I liked that too. I liked that he was a balloon.
Yeah.
But the reason why, just going back to what I brought up
where
before,
he falls over on top of them, and Kate McKinnon, best line in the movie, she's like, "This is how I always pictured my death."
The reason why I say Bill Murray had the best one though was because I felt like his role was the most clever.
Because he didn't even want to do Ghostbusters, and now he's a guy who's actively against the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's what I liked. It's what I brought up earlier. His disdain for the franchise makes it better, and that they kind of had that going. Like for a minute, I kind of felt like Bill Murray's making me like this movie more because this movie feels like it's not up its own ass anymore.
Well, he finally got
it feels like kind of self-aware at this point.
He finally got to die in a Ghostbusters movie, which he's been wanting.
He got what he always wanted,
yeah,
but he didn't come back as a ghost. Why didn't he come back as a ghost? That was such a missed opportunity.
Because it's Bill Murray.
They really Harrison
Yeah.
Forded him in that they finally gave him the character death that he wanted.
But again, like, but I always thought he wanted to come back as a ghost. I thought that was his dream. Like, I felt like that was a completely missed opportunity to have him not show up at the big in the ending.
I
the
believe
big
with
New York
no,
fight.
no. Bill Murray said that he wanted his character to die, so he
Well,
kind of got
at
his
one
wish.
point, his pitch for Ghostbusters 3 though was that he dies and then he comes back as a ghost and becomes the villain of the movie.
Yeah, that was his idea.
all right.
And I thought I didn't need him to be the villain of this. Like that kind of would have been like it's a bit on the
Although
nose
funny
for this
enough, we
whole.
got someone who died and ended up becoming the big villain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
true.
yeah.
I wonder if that was
And I
inspired.
enjoyed that.
I wonder if
Yeah,
that was inspired by that old pitch that Murray gave.
potentially. But although they're in that Ghostbusters video game we brought up earlier, that game's all about Ivo Shandor, the guy who was like a Gozer worshiper in the original Ghostbusters when he's brought up, and that was kind of the idea behind that. Was it was a guy who started off as human and then he became a ghost and he became a villain. So
Yeah.
he didn't die over the course of that
Yeah.
story though. He'd been dead for a long time. Anyway,
I think.
so Dan Aykroyd had the worst cameo.
Oh,
though, I thought.
definitely.
Oh my
I
god, that
disagree.
was
I think
painful.
the worst cameo was Sigourney Weaver at the end, just because it was so
Oh,
weird. Like, what
Really,
was she?
that was actually my favorite
What was she-
cameo.
Hers was
What she-
hers was weird and unnecessary, but Dan Aykroyd's was
What was she
awkward.
doing there? The only reason that Dan Aykroyd's cameo doesn't work is the same reason that all the jokes in the movie don't work. They just stretched it out too long. If he had pulled up and just like delivered that "I ain't afraid of no ghost" line and kept going, it would have been perfectly fucking fine. But they
Well,
have
it's really
like
funny, like for someone who has been like the biggest advocator of Ghostbusters 3, turned out to have like to contribute the least in this movie's plot.
I wish he would have been.
They have, like, a
Although I
5
really
minute-
like Charles Dance,
they have-
but I
have
wish he would have been like the
I wish he had been the ghost taxi driver from the first movie.
Oh yeah. Well, what I was gonna say was I wish he was the university professor at the beginning. That would have been a little. That would have been funny. I mean, I guess his cameo would have been too similar to Bill Murray's at that point. Like then it's just two former Ghostbusters who don't believe in ghosts and are vehemently against the idea of ghosts. But I feel like if you're gonna give any of the original Ghostbusters like a big role in the story, I felt like his should have been more substantial.
Yeah.
But because the way it was, it felt forced. It felt like, well, we got to get Dan Aykroyd in there somewhere, so let's just have him be a taxi driver.
Bill Murray probably would have been my favorite cameo if it hadn't been so fucking wasted.
I feel that, but just again, the second he was in there, I felt like the movie was up its own ass less. So
You know what would
it helped a little.
You know what
bit.
they should have done as a cameo? They
What?
should have made one of the ghosts just like barely resemble Harold Ramis.
Well, no, he was in there. He was a statue head at one
Oh
point.
yeah, that's true. They did
Oh
have
yeah,
a
that's
statue.
right.
I forgot about the bust. It's kind of like how in Independence Day Resurgence they go to the White House and there's just a fucking oil painting of Will Smith on the wall.
What?
There's a point in Independence Day Resurgence where Will Smith's son goes to the White House and there's just like an oil painting of Will Smith on the wall wearing his flight suit from the first movie.
Oh,
That's
I'm kind of
fucking-
hoping for like an image of that one image you see that gets posted everywhere of Will Smith from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That's
Well,
fucking
they're not gonna do that
weird.
because that
They
would.
need to.
That would have been amazing. Where it's just him like doing like the weird like look at me, I'm Will Smith pose, like
Yeah.
where he's just pointing off into the distance.
was-
Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be
the
great.
thumbs up.
That wouldn't have fit
But
into
you-
the story of the movie. Now, what
Yes,
if
it
it?
would.
What if it was?
Yeah, it could have been him as a young man, young, hung, and full of cum.
What if it was him pointing at an alien ship in the background?
That would have been great.
Look at that
It's like,
shit.
hey.
Oh.
Hey.
And he has the quote saying, "Welcome to Earth."
So, but wait, but why? Because he died? Like, so they're just like, let's put a big oil painting up of him in the White House. That's so fucking bizarre.
It needs to
all
be
of the
this exact
people-
image, an oil painting of this exact image.
Yeah, and he's pointing to the spaceship. From the,
The idea is supposed to be that all of the people who helped save the Earth in the '90s are kind of famous now for obvious reasons.
right, but okay, I guess I don't know. That's really, really weird to me, though.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying.
That's fucking bizarre.
That was the thing
Anyway,
that happened.
Okay, I can't see.
I think we covered most of them.
Well, I did like the other references that they had in the film, and Bill, I mentioned this one to you after we saw the film. Was the place where the Ghostbusters live, the Chinese food place? If you'll notice, for anybody who's going to watch the movie, it's called the Zoo Building, which I think was a direct reference to Zool, because essentially remove the L and it's Zool, like remove.
Now,
Oh yeah.
There
was
was
a
apparently
line. There was a line where they mentioned Zool, wasn't there?
Yeah.
there's an after credit scene that we didn't stay for, where Leslie
All
Jones
right.
was listening to some audio on that headset with the queef on it earlier in the movie. And I love how I had to say that. And apparently she takes the headphones off and goes, "Guys, who's Zool?" I'm like, I don't know. Apparently that was a thing.
They're
That was
they're
a
going to be
thing.
setting up Gozer for the second film then.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they'll make a second one. It did okay, but it didn't do
let's
what
see.
they wanted to
I'm looking
do.
at Box Office Mojo right now, and so far its domestic total as of July 24th, 2016 is $86 million against a $144 million. Add in the foreign gross, you got a worldwide box office performance of $122 million against the $144 million.
Okay, to be past your second weekend and not make your budget back internationally, that's a problem.
And it's super
Yeah.
funny just looking at like
statistic that I
Sony
heard-
desperately. Go ahead.
The statistic that I heard was that it dropped like 75% in its second weekend.
Yeah, I heard 60 like
Yeah.
62, 63%.
I mean, it had bad word of mouth going into it, so I mean, God. I
And
mean,
you cannot pin, and Sony cannot, and Paul Feig and everyone else, they cannot pin this on all the misogynistic haters because.
Oh, they will.
But do you think they can count them as being like this, like, oh, everyone who did not see this movie was a misogynistic hater?
No, I think they'll blame them for the bad word of mouth and be like, so many people judged it before they saw it that.
But then again, look at
nobody went.
Transformers. That movie
But
had
also,
bad
it's
word
like-
of mouth, and that
but-
modern audiences went
I
to
really
go
hope
see
the same
Transformers.
thing.
But Andres, I think that's okay though. I mean, it's like whatever their reason is.
Yeah.
If people don't want to go,
Right.
they don't have to fucking go.
Right.
Forcing people to go to a movie on some kind of weird principle, on some equality-based principle,
Mhm.
is insanity. Like you can't do that. Sure, more people should give the movie a chance, but I don't think there's a lot to give a chance in this movie. You know, I don't think there's a lot to give a chance to.
No.
So I
And
think
I'm-
that more of it was just a mediocre response by critics, and you had all the haters on top of it, and you had and you had a mediocre box office because of it.
Mhm.
I'm sort of worried that a similar thing is going to happen now to Star Trek Beyond, just because the trailers did not do that movie any justice.
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow because I've heard good things, so I'd like to support it because this summer has been really like kind of
I do want to talk about that, like in some like a
Yeah.
future movie about like how pretty much every movie that wasn't Civil War kind of had a very poor box office performance.
I'm really hoping that
Yeah.
Suicide Squad does well. Both
or just even a mixed critical response. Like
Both in
even
its
Civil
execution-
War was a bit kind of like people were kind of a little bit on it.
both in its execution and in how much money it makes, because that looks great. I feel like we're finally getting a DC movie that's having fun.
I'm really about yeah, no, I'm with you. This Suicide Squad looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait for
Well,
that.
it kind of looks like Justice League might.
Well,
Well, I mean,
all the
upcoming-
trailers we got this past Comic-Con are making me really hopeful for the future of DC comic films.
Yeah, that Justice League trailer was great, and the Wonder Woman trailer was thoroughly fine as well.
Despite the fact that it kind of looks like DC's Captain America.
Although,
First
given the
Avenger.
story,
Said
given
the
the
same
story,
thing on
that the
Civil War.
comparison was inevitable.
Yeah, that's
If
true.
you're gonna have a proper World War I or World War II storyline for Wonder Woman, it's gonna have the comparisons.
Yeah,
are going to happen.
Yeah, but they even
It's unavoidable.
They even went so far though as to use the version of Wonder Woman that has the shield and the whole 9 yards. Like it just feels.
And she uses the shield like so often in that trailer and in BVS. Like,
Would
it's
you
just-
like
it's
her
a little...
to use block every bullet with her bracelets?
Yes. I love
Yes, that's
Justice
the
League.
point of the fucking bracelet.
I love Justice League the animated series. I would love if she just used those fucking bracelets all the time.
That would be awesome. She doesn't need a shield. Like that's the whole point. Like she's so fast that she doesn't have to have a big thing covering her.
Remember
right?
that great fucking shot from the opening of Justice League where the music's playing and you just see the CG render of her blocking all those bullets?
I also don't. Yeah, we haven't really gotten a bullet.
That's Wonder
bracelets
Woman
thing,
to me.
Bill, Bill, that line where you just said that big thing's covering her kind of worries me.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, no, but what I meant is that she doesn't need like a thing that has a lot of surface area. She just needs something that can block bullets. You know, she's so quick that she shouldn't have to like need a big shield. But yeah, she doesn't need a big cock covering up. That's not something that she
I really
needs.
love that shot in the trailer where she's just wearing like an evening dress, but the sword is in the back of it.
That was cool. That was cool. I don't think Wonder Woman needs a cape. Like that's something that they've played with in some of the promotional
She
material.
Sometimes in
she's
the
had a
comics,
cape
too.
I
sometimes,
think
yeah.
I think she's just going to be like cloaked for in like a scene of the movie. I don't think it's going to be like a consistent thing. Because then when you see all the shots of her like fighting on the battlefield, there's no fucking cape or anything.
Right. No, I feel you, but it just doesn't. She looks too much like Superman to me at that
She'll
point.
probably use it to be like inconspicuous in a crowd at some point, like Jet Jaguar wearing that hoodie in the
Right.
trailer.
Oh my God, you're making such good analogies tonight. I love it. Well, guys, we're not talking about Ghostbusters anymore. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up about Ghostbusters 16 that we?
Like Rowan's final form. Oh, I do want to say that like I thought
This is
I
my
still
final
think it's
form.
I still feel like it's very lazy to just take the logo and make the concept of just taking the logo and make a monster out of it. But
I liked that it
Go
was
ahead, Andres. I'm
I
sorry. I
liked
didn't
that
know
it
you
was a
were finished.
reference to Gozer, the whole choose the form of your destruction idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But other
And it's
than
like, oh, can you just turn into a monster, to a ghost that's just nice, cute, and cuddly looking? But yeah, I think in context it worked better than what I initially thought it would be. And
I thought it was a redesign of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and if that was going to be true, I was going to be fucking pissed.
yeah,
Mhm.
don't you ruin my favorite kaiju.
And I thought it was really nice to see, like, for one brief moment, to see like a traditionally hand drawn animated character in a live action movie, because
Yeah,
God knows we haven't seen one since Looney Tunes Back in Action.
we haven't gotten a good 2D animation live action
Hybrid.
word I was looking integration is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a good one of those in a long time. So that was
Yeah.
really neat to see, even if it was only on screen for like 2 seconds.
Was it better than Cool World?
That's what to say.
I don't know.
Animation wise is better than Cool World, and I will say this movie is better overall than Cool World, but not
Wow,
as
that's a fucking endorsement.
not
It
as
ain't got
creative.
shit.
Not as creative as Cool World.
But it ain't got shit on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
It's not
Right.
as cool as those movies.
Ah,
Get it?
ah,
Because one of them has cool in the title. If you really, really, really have a really low standard for humor, that was funny.
oh, Bill.
If not, you're the writers of this movie. Anyway,
Oh,
Oh wait, there is one.
Uh,
There is one other reference I kind of got. That was when Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig were going down into the I guess essentially the ghost afterlife. Do you guys think that was a reference to the supposed script of Ghostbusters Going to Hell?
I don't
thought-
think so.
you mean
I-
Manhelton?
no, I just
I
thought
just-
it was them ripping off Poltergeist.
I thought
Like,
it
as
was
much
just,
as I love-
I thought it was them ripping off the ending of Big Hero 6.
As much as
I thought it was them ripping off the Ghostbusters game, because that's what happens in that game.
Yeah.
I loved the third act climax of them fighting all those ghosts in the city. They just ripped
Great
off,
action scene.
They just ripped off a bunch of movies in random succession. Like I remember at one point I'm leaning over to Bill and I'm like, oh, it's 300 now when Kate McKinnon's doing like the slow motion fighting, and then they do the thing where they have to go down into the ghost world to save Melissa McCarthy and she's holding on by a rope, and I'm like, oh, and now it's Poltergeist.
And then at the end, it was weirdly the first X-Men, where their hair changed color because they went through a weird experience. Do you remember that,
Yeah,
Dee?
Yeah.
That's weird.
That was fucking weird. Like, we just watched X-Men recently, and that's what happens in that movie.
All
So
this after they had just ripped off the mask. Like it was.
yeah, it was. But if you steal from a bunch of sources, you're a genius, as they say. So I guess these guys are a genius, or are a collective
I
genius.
was thinking, did Paul Feig just like put on a playlist of his favorite movies when he was planning this shit? Like,
One thing I did want to bring up was the fact that the whole turning back time and turning Manhattan into, or Times Square into the 70s served no purpose at all, and I barely even noticed the aesthetic after it happened.
I literally didn't even know that they did that until you just brought it up. That happened?
Yes, the ghosts
We saw
turned
this movie.
everything into the 70s.
I
For
did
no
not
reason.
I didn't even realize that happened.
I mean, he did get, like, Rowan gave some sort of brief explanation as to why he was turning to the 70s, but I forgot what it was, and they did nothing with it.
oh,
There was so much exposition in this movie that I just kind of tuned out after a
that was
couple
Rowan's.
lines.
That was most of Rowan's shtick. He was just expositing his
I just
evil
remembered-
plan.
I just remember.
He was funny though. So
I just remember the other thing. You guys remember when it was the fog for a few minutes? Huh?
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the movie turned into the fog.
I did think that as derivative of a bunch of superhero movies recently as that last action scene was, I had the most fun with that action scene at the end. Like that was the most fun I had in
That
the
was
whole
the
movie.
best part of the movie. Yeah.
For me,
And
for me, that was the opposite thing, where it's like it just became another generic big blockbuster action movie like every other superhero movie, where it's like, oh, there's a big thing happening again in New York again, so there's a bunch of nameless, faceless, bad henchmen that they have to beat easily again, so that they eventually fight the bad guy at the end again. So it's like
You're
nothing.
right. You're
It's
right.
like
But I would rather have that than shitty humor.
My problem though with the climax is a bit of how they set it up, because we have the three of the Ghostbusters getting ready, and Kristen Wiig is out somewhere in
yeah.
New York City, and then all of a sudden she has her proton back and her suit on.
She's like teleporting all over the third
Yeah,
act.
where the fuck did she get that
My
stuff?
problem with the third act was that there was no Rick Moranis. Where was my Rick Moranis?
Clearly no Rick Moranis.
Well, Kevin was kind of a mix of Louis Tully and
No,
Janine.
and
Fuck
Janine.
that bullshit.
Yeah,
Where's my Rick Moranis cameo?
maybe
That
he's
man
their
deserved
child.
a cameo.
But yeah. Oh yeah, Rick Moranis didn't get it. Yeah, that was fucked up. Yeah, fuck this movie for that reason
I
alone.
love that man.
He probably said they probably asked him. He probably
Where's
said
Wayne
no.
Zelinsky
Who was he?
I heard that's
from Honey I Shrunk the
that's
Kids?
his name
Yes.
from Honey,
Oh, okay.
I
God
once
damn
heard
it,
that
Andre,
Rick
stick to my
Moranis-
references.
I once heard that Rick Moranis thought that he was like quote too big for Ghostbusters now, so I guess maybe.
Wow, that really doesn't sound like something he'd
I
say.
doubt
If
that.
so, fuck him. Damn. But that doesn't sound like him. Like he's apparently a very earnest, like down to earth guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
I
like
don't
the
even
reason why
remember.
he hasn't been acting is because he just didn't find a script that he liked.
That was probably just one of those
Well,
stupid.
he had to take care of his family, and then they grew up, and then yeah, I guess that was the reason he couldn't do the Honey I Shrunk the Kids TV show where they met Bigfoot.
I probably
That was a
it
thing
was
that
probably
happened,
just one of those stupid rumors that I heard somewhere. But
as most things are. So yeah. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up? Because I'm
See.
kind of
No,
I
that's
feel
pretty
like
much
we
it.
need-
Yeah.
I feel like we need more Rick Moranis in our lives.
yeah. I feel like that was the biggest sin this movie committed was it didn't give us more Rick Moranis.
Oh,
He's,
wait,
Yeah.
he's like Jeff Goldblum. It's like one of those underappreciated actors that we need to get brought back. We need to get back into the spotlight.
They need
Yeah.
to give Goldblum like a really good TV show that he can just be the lead in. They need to give him like a House kind of show where it's all about like him and just struggling with his own inner demons and shit. Like, give him like have him play like a hard-boiled detective or something.
You need, like, a
like just
rip-off.
something like that.
We need like a rip off of the new Triple X trailer where it's just people like going up to Rick Moranis. We need you to come back.
Yeah. That trailer. Anyway. All right, so I don't really want to do ratings because I don't really do that anymore, but if you
Uh-huh.
guys want to give a rating, go for it.
Like I say, it's a thoroughly average experience. It's not a complete waste of time. There are a few laughs here and there, and it's got decent enough spectacle to where I would give it the 3 out of 5, which is very middle of the road. A very middle of the road rating for me.
Well,
And
I'll go
so-
even more middle of the road because I was so 50-50 on the movie that I'll give it 2.5 queefs out of 5.
Essentially, the movie is a case where it's going to start out bad, but as the film progresses, it gets better and better, but with some hiccups here and there. It's not something that would wow you, but it's not something that's going to make you completely bored or completely frustrated throughout the entire time. For me, it was...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it essentially, it's a mediocre experience. So I'm going to give the new Ghostbusters film 2 gold stars out of 5.
All right. I'm not gonna give a rating. I'll just give kind of my final thoughts. This was a really, really mediocre movie to me, and it dipped more towards the bad for me just because so little of the jokes landed.
Mm-hmm.
But on a conceptual level, everything was fine. Production-wise, everything looked okay. The special effects were fine. I liked the action sequences. What I was gonna say a couple minutes ago, I just forgot. We got the best action in Ghostbusters movies ever. I mean,
Even if it kind of goes against the entire point of being a Ghostbuster, that you're trying to capture ghosts, not destroy them.
Yeah, Andres, I was surprised you didn't bring that up because that was something that really bugged you on the way out.
Yeah, it's like I was constantly it's like that's not really what ghostbusting is all about. It goes against the core concept of it, and it's like, how do you kill a ghost? But then I do like Jacob Baker's explanation where it's like because they established that these ghosts are made out of a type of material that it would make sense to build weapons that could like kind of disperse that material that the ghosts are made out of.
But Andres,
Right.
busting makes them feel good.
But that's
Yeah.
not busting.
Busting their fucking skulls in.
Killing makes me feel good.
This feels
Murder
more
makes me
extreme,
feel
and this feels more extreme than the actual Extreme Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
You guys notice?
definitely.
You guys notice how at one point that action scene just turned into a video game fight because you had a boss and he spawned a bunch of little minions.
Oh my god, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
the final boss in Arkham Asylum.
I felt like the ending where Kate McKinnon dove into the other dimension was a bit of a quick time event. Like you press buttons to avoid obstacles and shit.
I mean, Kristen Wiig dove into the other dimension.
Did I say Kate McKinnon? My bad.
You did.
They have like the same initials almost. So if you flip W upside down, it's an M, just like SpongeBob taught us, kids. Wumbo. And that's what I feel like this movie was, a whole bunch of wumbo. I don't know what that
It
actually.
was a whole bunch of hoopla.
Yeah, a bit. It was a bunch of hoopla for no reason. Like, and that's the thing. It's like this movie is not deserving of hoopla. Like, it created no real emotional response from me whatsoever, and I just
Yeah.
found myself very bored most of the time. I just found it to be a very boring experience. It had its moments here and there, but I will never sit through it again. Just because I didn't. It did nothing for me.
Well, if you remember, before we left New York, we were talking about Ghostbusters, and at one point I mentioned to you that I felt like the movie was just going to be ultimately very forgettable. Like a year from now, nobody would probably remember it, and I still feel that way having seen it now.
Yeah, there's a lot that I think we've left out that we could have mentioned as good or bad things that just have gone into the annals of history because I don't remember them. So
Yeah,
the
one
the
that- one that-
annals.
Yeah, one that I was going to think about bringing up was how the Ghostbusters got their name.
Oh, I meant to mention that.
Oh, that
earlier.
was a continuity error too, but you guys go ahead. I'll mention my continuity error in a
I
second.
kind of forgot I was going to mention that earlier. I liked the idea that it wasn't their idea to be called that.
I don't know, but it really, all it just led up to was kind of a really stupid joke, though, involving that they're trying to satirize.
Well, that's all
these-
everything in this movie leads up.
Well, yeah, but like but still, you're getting the name just because you're trying to satirize modern ghost hunters who, think that they're finding ghosts, but really they're not. Like stuff like ghost hunters or whatever. But seriously, that's how you're gonna name them, but just by a joke. I mean, the logo's one thing, but that really.
Well, also, they also did come up with their own name because there was a massive continuity error with the YouTube channel they had at the beginning of the movie because that was called Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, you mentioned. I believe you mentioned that after we saw it.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if I go back and watch it, it wasn't called that. But the memory I have is that when you see the YouTube channel that they're using at the beginning of the movie, when they're going back and looking at the footage that they shot, it's called Ghostbusters.
Oh no! I decided to watch a scene of. There was a link on YouTube that showed the clip of that, and yeah, I can't confirm that did have the Ghostbusters name on it.
See, there you go. So it was a continuity error. They did call themselves the Ghostbusters, and that really, really irked me in the theater because I remembered that. And I thought that was kind of a clever way to actually work the name in there, where it's like that they actually came up with the name to be the name of their YouTube channel earlier in the movie. I thought that was okay. That was kind of
I didn't even
clever.
pay attention to what the YouTube channel was called, so I didn't catch that at all.
I just happened to notice it just peripherally.
And I feel like
I wasn't looking at
I feel
it.
like
I
the
just
people
happened
who
to
made
notice
the
it.
movie were expecting people not to notice that. So,
Yeah, well, they do a lot of times. If you look at fake YouTube channels and pages in these movies, it's hysterical how bad they are. Like in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he's watching YouTube videos at one point, and if you just look at the like to dislike ratio of a lot of those videos and compare that to the views, it just doesn't add up, and it's all weird and shit. So I don't know. People need to get more on their game with that shit. I think just in general, mass media like your TV and your movies and all that, they just have to get better at using the internet in their stories if they're gonna use them, because clearly the people writing and creating the fake navigations of all that just obviously don't get it or don't put enough attention into making it realistic that it's hilarious when you see it in the movie and you just can't take it seriously. Even in a comedic context, it just doesn't work. But anyway, so I think that'll do it for this review or this spoiler analysis of Ghostbusters 2016, and this final video that we're recording for the road trip to GFest 3, the search for more swag. Andrew, thank you for guest hosting on this aspect of the miniseries. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, glad to be on your channel once again, Bill, and hopefully we can do some more videos with you in the future.
Absolutely, that'd be a blast, bro. And I think that's going to do it. So we will see you next G-Fest, and we will see you in the future for more podcasts, more reviews, and more useless bullshit that nobody will watch. So until next time, everyone, I'm Bill Worster, aka Zazubaar.
I'm Super DM64, and I think I'm next on the docket, right? Goes me next, and then Andre. Okay, good.
I'm Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I'm Blue Eyes of Sapphire Night Productions.
And it was a road trip, kids!
For the third time!
For the third time in a row!
Yay!
Did we actually get more swag this time? I think we did.
I think I did. I think I got more. I think I got more stuff. I got more stuff from the dealer's room this year than I have in years past. Usually I get like a bunch of shit in the artist alley and not as much shit
Right,
from the dealer's
same
room.
here, yeah.
This year it was way in the opposite direction. I got way more shit from the dealer's room and didn't buy as much art just because I was out of money from the dealer's room.
Yeah.
I was able to get a lot of DVDs. A lot of DVDs from there.
So in conclusion,
the swag was searched.
the search was successful, kids.
The swag was triggered.